Hi, I'm Bonnie Barker with BonnieBayCrochet.com, and you've come to video number 3 of the Celtic Diamond Wrap. In this video, we are going to finish our wrap. If you've been following along the last 2 weeks, you should have something that looks approximately like this. In this video, we're going to cover row 75 to the finish. Okay, row 75 is going to be a repeat of row 2, which is just single crochet across. So let's go on, and I'll give you an up-close view of how to finish this. Okay, so as I said, for row 75, we are just going to chain 1, and we are going to single crochet in each stitch all the way across. So go ahead and do that, and then we will start the perimeter round as soon as we finish working row 75. Now that we've finished row 75, we're going to continue to keep the front side facing. Do not fasten off here. We're going to continue on to our perimeter round. So go ahead and turn the work 90 degrees. We're going to be now working across the row ends. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 1. And I'm going to start in the same single crochet or same stitch space where I worked the last single crochet. I'm going to go ahead and single crochet and then chain 1. We're going to do this 35 times and try to work this as evenly as you can across the bottom of your wrap. A strategy that you can use in doing this, and just to let you know, there are going to be a total of 35 repeats of the single crochet chain 1 plus another single crochet at the end. So that's going to be a total of 36 single crochets. So that divided by 2 is 18, or at least it used to be when I was in school. So what I would even suggest you do is know that the center of the wrap is right here in the middle of the shadow box, and just kind of shoot for around, maybe the 18th stitch being in this vicinity. I think if you can do that, you'll be very close. It's not unusual to have to make a couple attempts at doing these things when you're working them across the row ends evenly. So I'll go ahead and show you just to get you started. So I'm going to go ahead and single crochet in this row end, chain 1, and then single crochet, chain 1, and just continue on across. And I'll show you when I get to the center about how these are spaced. Okay, I've worked to the center and I've done 18 repeats, and this is what it should look like, something like this. Okay, this is you're actually making the spaces where the fringe is going to be added into this. Okay, so just go ahead and continue on across the row with the single crochet chain 1, doing that as evenly as you can. And what's nice about knowing that this is number 18 is that if I don't like the spacing and I run short for the other half, I don't have to rip the whole thing out. I can just come back to the center and start again. Okay, I hope that's helpful to you. So go ahead and finish across this end. Okay, I've finished all the way to the end. I have 35 repeats of the single crochet chain 1 plus an additional single crochet here. So this will be the 36th single crochet. Now we are going to turn to work along the foundation chain where we first started. Okay, now according to the directions, we are going to chain 1 and then working in the unworked loops of the foundation chain, slip stitch into each stitch across. So we're going to chain 1 and go ahead and hide this loose strand back out of the way because we'll deal with that later. So we're working in the remaining loops of this foundation chain. So we're just going to work slip stitch all the way across. If you have a hard time finding where to work, another strategy is to find where the stitch is. Here's the single crochet, and you can see the hole that is remaining there with those 2 loops left. So we just stick the hook right in there. Actually, the hook should just fit right in there naturally. Okay, so go ahead and work these slip stitches all the way across. And by working this, I hope you can see this, it already is settling out the edge. Okay, so where it was just a little bit curly before, this is going to really settle things out and help it to lay flat. So go ahead and finish the slip stitch all the way across that long edge. There is one other thing I should mention before you finish this all the way across. If you were one of those crocheters that tends to crochet chains and slip stitches extremely tightly, or if you find as you go across you're finding your material kind of pulled a little too tight, you're going to need to bump up to a larger size crochet hook. So if that is you, go ahead, whatever size crochet hook you're using, go ahead and bump it up one size. Now if you're like me and it's fine and it's not a problem, just continue on. I just wanted to throw that out there so that you're not making this side, unusually tight. After you've worked those slip stitches all the way across that foundation edge, we're going to chain one, and then we're going to turn to work across the other end, and we're going to do it just the same way that we did before. We're going to start with a single crochet in that first stitch or first row, chain one, and then single crochet evenly along the edge until you have 35 single crochet, chain one, and then we'll have that last, or the 36th single crochet worked all the way at the end on this other end, just like we did before. And then we're going to chain one, turn, and then you're going to slip stitch, working through both of the loops as you go across. We'll just work a slip stitch all the way across, and then I'll show you the join. After you've worked that slip stitch all the way across row 75, which was the last single crochet row that we worked, go ahead and join with a slip stitch right in that first stitch of that round, and go ahead and fasten off, and go ahead and get your scissors, cut a nice long strand. Okay, so now before we get to the fringe, there's one thing I'm going to recommend you do. You don't have to do it in this order, but I think it will be a lot easier when adding the fringe, and that is, let's go ahead and hide all of our loose ends with our yarn needle. I'll just show you quickly how I like to do this. I like to hide these loose ends with the back side facing, and simply run them under the stitches as best you can. And I like to run them under quite a few, just so there's no chance of this, so that should be plenty, so there's no chance of this strand pulling out. So go ahead and pull it all the way back, and then I give it a little tug so that it's not real tight in there. Very carefully clip the strand, and there you go, it's gone. And so I have a lot more to do because there were a lot of balls of yarn here, so I've got my work cut out for me. So I'm going to go ahead and hide all these loose ends, and then we will work on the knotted fringe. Okay, now we're ready to work on the fringe. And for the fringe, you're going to need either a book or something sturdy. It could be a piece of cardboard, it could be a notebook, whatever. But what I'm recommending, we need to make 24-inch fringe. So I'm going to show you here that when you measure this book all the way down the side and a little bit of the binding, you do get 12 inches. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap the yarn around this book, and I'll show that to you right now. And every time we wrap it around one time, we're going to come up with a 24-inch piece. And I'm just going to go ahead and make a little bit of fringe and show you just a really quick way to do it. I like to count by fives as I do this. That way I know that I'm going to have enough, and I'm not going to cut more yarn than I really need, because if I have any of this yarn that's left over, I definitely want to use it for something else. So this is what I do. Hold it carefully, and as I wrap this yarn, I'm not doing it real tightly. You don't want to pull it real taut. Just have it kind of loose in your hand. Okay, and just wrap it around the book. Okay, so that's one set of 5. Okay, that's 2 sets of 5. Let me pull some more yarn out, because I don't want this yarn to be tightened as I wrap it, because if it's too tight, then the fringe is going to shrink up and you're not going to have those 24-inch pieces. Okay, 2, 3. Okay, so that's 3 sets. pull some more up here. Okay, and I'll do one more set. Okay, so I've now wrapped this around 25 times. So what I'm going to do is just simply trim the top. And this is where it's kind of nice if you use a book. Don't use your favorite book, obviously. Use a book that's, you know, pretty sturdy. Anyway, you do want to be careful. And then just cut across. And now I have, whoop, I didn't cut one. There we go. So now I have, well, you can see the static electricity. It's very dry here in my home during the winter time. Now we have enough fringe to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and cut more fringe so that I have enough all the way across. I'm going to need approximately 18 sets of 5 for each end. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those, and then I'll show you how to connect them in. Okay, now that we've got all of our fringe cut, I just wanted to say a couple things about this. As you can see, it's a bit curly right now, but don't let that worry you. I'm going to go ahead and show you up close how to connect this in to your shawl or to your wrap. And then after we do that, I'm going to take out my little steamer and I'm going to show you how you can steam this out before we do the final knotting and the final trim. And I also wanted to mention, if the item that you used to trim your fringe is a little bit longer than what I have, that's actually fine, because we do want to leave a little bit extra. I mean, in the 24-inch fringe that's in the direction, there's a little bit extra built into that number so that you can trim up to an inch off of the final cut. Okay, so that when we get this all evened up, you'll have plenty of fringe left, I promise you. But anyway, just didn't want you to worry about the curliness of your yarn. All right, so we are going to take care of that. I got you covered. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now what you're going to want to do is take 5 of the strands in your hand and try to get the ends evened up on one end. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. I'm getting them kind of all even on one side, and then I'm going to try to straighten them out as best I can. And then I'm going to estimate where the center is. So it's really a little bit of a challenge here with all the static electricity in the wintertime. So now I'm going to take my hook. It doesn't really matter what size hook you use for this step. The J hook that you have should be fine. I'm actually using a K just because it's available. And you're going to want to find the first chain 1 spot, which is right here. Okay, remember the chain 1 spots worked at the end. Now, so with the front side facing up, go ahead and pull those down like so. All the strands over, and then pull it through. And then give it a tug. And we've begun the fringe. So let's do that. I'll do that a couple more times for you. We take 5 strands. And we're going to get it as even as possible. And again, we're not shooting for perfection here. You know, you want to be somewhat accurate, but do the best you can. There is extra built into this for, getting it even later on. Okay, so we're going to skip the next chain 1 space. And in the next chain 1 space, we're going to put another of the strands. So go ahead and pull them through. Put them all over the hook. And then pull them through. And then pull it nice and tight. Now, if you don't like the way the strands are falling here, if they look really a jumbled mess, go ahead and take it out and try it again. Okay, I'm going to do one more for you here, and then I'm going to have you do the whole side back and forth. Again, we're going to line up these threads as best we can on one end. And go ahead and smooth them out a little bit. find the center. And then we go back to where we were here. We're going to skip the next chain 1 space, and we're going to put our hook in the next chain 1 space. And just pull it on through. Okay, so we're going to do this all the way across. Now, if you get to the end, you want it to be somewhat symmetrical. And, you know, if there's a chance that you don't like where it ends, you can always add an extra tassel down here in the corner to even it out. But I'm going to go ahead and work across my end, and I'll show you, you know, where I am once I get to the end here. Okay, I've gone ahead and put my fringe along both ends of this, and as you can see, this is a curly mess. So I'm going to fix that right now. I have a little hand operated steamer here, and you may have something better than this at home. These are readily available online, and they really work well. I wanted to show you. I'm just going to recommend you steaming this out just like so. Okay, and you can already see it. See the curliness falling out. You need to be careful though not to burn yourself with this, because the steam can really burn. So I'm going to go ahead and finish steaming this and getting all the curl. You can see how it's falling out. I'm going to go ahead and pull on it a little bit. Also, if you get one of these little steamers, I'd recommend using distilled water rather than tap water, just so that the minerals don't, you know, spurt at you, and sometimes they can actually damage clothes and so forth. Okay. So, anyway, you can get an idea. See how well that worked, and how the steam just took all the curl right out of that? Okay, it's not perfect, but it's straight enough now for us to do the next step. Actually, that's actually very good. Okay, so that's where we are now. So that's in a good place. And also you see how uneven it is down here. And we're going to take care of all that as soon as we start tying our knots. So let's go ahead, and I will show you how to tie the knotted fringe. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start you on the end piece first. Okay, so for this end piece, where we tie our first knot, we're going to take all of this yarn, and we're going to take half of this yarn. So that's going to be 5 strands. So you can just count out 5 strands. It should be, you know, where it's split about halfway. And I like to wrap it around my finger like so, and then pull it through, just a regular old knot. And then you want to be careful, don't just yank it tight, but you want to leave about 1 inch. I'm just estimating, but let's go ahead and let's look at the so about 1 inch, maybe even a little more, if you can see that. This is all approximate. It doesn't have to be exact. So I like it there. And so now I'm going to just give it a tug and a pull. And I think that looks good for the first one. Okay, now for the second one right beside it. Again, we're going to take half of this. I'm going to count out 5 strands, and we have 5 strands from the other side. And again, just wrap it around, pull it through, and I'm going to pull it down. And you can use the space here as a guide. And don't worry about it being perfectly exact. You know, it can actually sometimes a more rustic look, where things are just a little uneven, is, you know, gives it some character. Okay, so now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take the remaining strands here and the strands over there, 5 from the other side, wrap them around the finger, and then bring them through. Okay, and just make sure you get that spacing before you pull it too tight. Okay, I like that. Go ahead and give it a tug, so you can see how this is coming. So I'm going to go ahead Do 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the other side. You know what? That's not exactly in the middle, so I'm going to see. I'm going to get the 5 that are in the middle here. Yeah, I like that better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. And we take the 5 from the other side. Wrap it around the fingers. Pull it through. And then compare it to what you're doing here. Okay, I like that. So you can see how this knotted fringe is coming out. Now after we do, I'm going to go ahead and do all the knotted fringe, but once I go ahead and do that, you're going to need to take a pair of scissors after we finish. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at this and decide about where I want to trim. I think I want to trim about here. And then I can trim all the fringe to have it look very, very even. Okay. So I'll show you how much shorter that may end up being than this one here. So I can cut a good inch off of that and still have lovely, lovely fringe. Okay. So won't you go ahead and work on those knots all the way across, and I'll show you what I have when I get done. Well, I'm all finished and was able to finish up the fringe. I just wanted to thank you for tuning in for these 3 weeks, and I appreciate all the kind comments and interacting with you on the Bonnie Babe Crochet YouTube channel. If you haven't already, if you'd please kindly just hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any more of the new offerings coming your way. Well, that's it. God bless. Bye-bye.